We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, and KV will not be joining us.
Okay.
He's got some other stuff to do, so we can get started. We do not have, we've got me, Paul, Joe, Tom, Jean, and Linda. Tracy Blaze is with us, and we do have some guests. So we don't have minutes. Pardon?
I see Steve.
Yep.
Marshall, can you hear me?
Yes. And can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. And I'll go on mute now.
Okay. We have no minutes from this time, from last meeting for this meeting. One of the things, just a piece of business, we are going to have a joint meeting with the selectmen coming up, and we can do that either next week or the week after. I'm available either time, but I think the selectmen are already set for the 2nd. Is that right, Tracy? Okay, Tracy, we got to unmute you.
Lower
Tracy.
left-hand corner.
Here we go.
There you go.
There you go. Okay.
There's Tracy.
If the finance committee wasn't the majority of the committee wasn't available on the selectmen's regularly scheduled meeting, then we could also look to the first Tuesday in June. We'd have to call a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So
Okay, so they're going to meet on the 26th.
yes.
So who do we have who's available on the 26th? Or okay, I'm available.
Available any day you need.
I'm looking. I can't imagine that I have anything, but
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
All
I
right.
should be good. I should be good.
Okay,
yeah, the
Linda?
26th.
Great. That's
Okay, that'll give it a quorum, so I'll set that meeting up for the 26th.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. I'll get you notice. And that the purpose of that meeting will be to go over the warrant for the town meeting
correct.
along with the selectmen.
Yes.
Okay? So we have, I sent you all the revenue reports. Are any questions, any comments, or any specific things you'd like to go over?
Give me a second.
Yep.
That's it. Take a Gene. Take a look, Gene. Rip it apart.
Well, I thought I had a question, but I can't find my question mark.
Well, I've got a couple, so you can continue to look while I have.
Actually, you know what would be helpful? I don't know how many people are watching, but if you're looking at this, it might be helpful to explain a little bit about the stabilization, the very first item, Tracy. You know, what that's all about.
On the revenue report, Gene?
No, I'm looking at general fund. Did you say revenue you're looking at or general fund report?
Well, I'm going to look at the revenue first.
Okay, all right, never mind.
Okay. And one of the things that jumped out at me, and I don't know if it jumped out at anybody else, was investment income, where it looks like we doubled our investment income year over year, which I thought was a little strange. And then collections, we have no pilot. Is that just Layton coming in? Because normally we get some of that from the state, some from Dummer.
We never know when we're going to get it from the state. We've had years when we've had 2 pilots come in the same fiscal year and received nothing the prior year. At their mercy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about the investment income?
Investment income is primarily a factor of our strong free cash position. We've been investing it, and prior to that, we really haven't had free cash balances. When we got it, we spent a good portion of it. Last year, we certified, I think, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was close to $2.5 million. So as that sits there, both that and the stabilization fund, remember, we never really carried a balance in our stabilization account, and now we're carrying somewhere around 600,000. We're getting to the point where we're hopefully going to be in a position where we fully fund it so that our stabilization fund balance can fund our asset replacement schedule fully, and we don't have to keep drawing from free cash, but
Yep.
not quite there yet. We have a lot of fire trucks.
Tracy,
Yes.
Anything in the revenue report that we should be concerned with?
Not right now, Gene, but I have some serious concerns about 2021.
Well, yeah, that was.
Yeah.
we're not doing it.
Right. This year we're trending fine.
Okay.
As you all know, we try to be a little bit disciplined in our estimates. We want to make sure that they come in within the 10% that the DOR recommends. We're certainly conservative, just because an estimate, an actual comes in higher one year doesn't mean we automatically bump that up higher and then have additional levy capacity to reinstate departmental operating budgets. But we're pretty good about estimating conservatively and being really disciplined in not adding back budget capacity unless we're absolutely sure that it's sustainable in the long term. Like, I know Gene over the years has been really adamant about us paying very close attention in the event that we have an assessment that's lower than we had anticipated, making sure that we don't go ahead and appropriate that to another operating budget. Rather, we would tuck it away in the stabilization fund in 1 year, understanding that those expenses are going to come back and we're going to have to be able to fund them. So we're really disciplined about our levy capacity, and I think that shows in the numbers that you're seeing here. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yep.
Does anyone else have any other things to comment on? Well, Tracy, while we have you here, on page 6 of the departmental expenditure report, I'd love you to talk about the cost of bonding, which is only 10% of what we had allowed. Is that simply because we have not gone after those bonds yet?
It actually, Chairman Justice, and that money that is left available there, if you recall, we had planned to do a lot of short-term borrowing for the project, but with
Yes.
interest rates being so favorable, rather than short-term as necessary, we went out and issued the full bond. So we saved a lot of money in the bonding costs. So that'll actually become a component of this year's free cash that we would certify probably in September.
Okay. So, so we spoke about 2021, or you alluded to 2021. What are we looking at as far as some of the potential issues that we have going forward into that time frame?
Revenues. The goal going into the 2021 budget was, to reinstate some library staff. You had a nice presentation from the library trustees, and I had incorporated that into the budget. We had also incorporated additional shift coverage for our fire department. We had hoped to add on a police officer. We fully funded the DPW contract, and basically within about a week's time, that entire budget went in the shredder. Yeah, everything changed dramatically. Right now, we've had meetings with the managers, and I think at this point, the best we can hope for is looking at a level funded budget, with the exception of a couple of items. You know, we know some of our insurances are going to be going up, some of our fixed costs. Hopefully our street lighting costs are going down. We will fully fund our contractual obligations, but beyond that, there will be no additional increases in 2021.
So are you looking at, are you,
Go ahead.
a 1/12 budget is not in the making?
I actually am. The town accountant and I spent a great deal of time Monday going over what a proposed 1/12 budget will look like. I'm hopeful we won't have to go to that. In all likelihood, our town meeting is scheduled for the 23rd. We only need a quorum of 40 people. So, you know, we're hopeful that people will come out and we will get the budget passed. But I always like to have a backup plan in the event that something happens and we don't get the requisite number of voters in attendance. At that point, we would have to petition DOR for the 1/12 budget. We have it prepared. I've spoken to Superintendent Forget, and I've talked to Whittier to understand what it might look like. Fortunately, the regional school districts, as Brian explained to me, July and August are usually the relatively lower months for them because of the way the teachers' contract, the teachers' pay is spaced out. So, and I would be extremely hopeful that by that point we would have been successful in getting a town meeting together. So.
Okay, all right.
Tracy, do you think by the time that you're ready to do this budget, we're gonna have enough information to take and actually put forth a budget?
Yeah, it was a scramble without a doubt to get the second iteration of the budget proposal together. But it's really easy when you're level funding everyone. It makes things look a lot different. We have some retirements and negotiations and things that will increase some of the line items. But overall, I feel confident that even with the reduced revenue picture, we'll be able to go to town meeting on the 23rd. And there is, I'm sure all of you have heard a lot about the CARES Act and all of this money that's going to be coming to the communities. And it's great that Congress is talking about these relief packages, but unfortunately some of the strings that are attached are going to prohibit us from using it where we need it most. What most communities are going to need is revenue replacement. That's where we're going to be hit the hardest. Even those that completely level fund, when your revenue drop, obviously, that's an issue. So, but right now, that money can only be used for COVID-related expenses that aren't otherwise reimbursed by MEMA or FEMA. So, that kind of limits what we can use it for. But there are so many discussions going on, and MMA is, obviously lobbying on behalf of the communities, and things change. I mean, I would have said a couple of weeks ago daily, but they're changing hourly at this point in time. I can be on one conference from Mass Board of Health and hear a different story from what the lieutenant governor says. So it's really, it's going to take a while for the written guidance to catch up with all the conversations and the legislation that's being proposed.
When do we see the budget?
I should have it. The one thing that we're waiting for the budget's done is the warrant. So most boards and committees have asked to hold off on conducting public hearings, not public meetings, but public hearings, because there are a lot of problems with some people feeling like they can't be heard. because they don't have access to a computer or whatever. The computer didn't work right, or they weren't able to have their concerns aired in the public hearing setting. So Lisa Mead and Mead Talman and Costa has advised us that if we can push our public hearings off, to do so, there's less potential for litigation. So the planning board hasn't been able to hold any of their public hearings, and we've been waiting because they had a number of articles. But I had a meeting with the chairman and the planning director, and because it's getting so close to our town meeting date, they have agreed to pull all those articles off. So I'll read it. It's in a draft format, but I can send that out to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That would be great.
Yep.
On that vein, is there any thought process when town hall might open again?
No, we're kind of taking our lead from the state. We're all here working. Everyone throughout the pandemic, people worked remotely, and in order to socially distance, we had, one person from each function of government in on the various days, and then they would work remotely the other 3 days. But now we're all back. But as far as opening to the public, I don't think it's likely to happen before the governor's phase 3. Each phase, they're saying will take approximately 3 weeks to complete.
A minimum of 3 weeks.
What's that?
A minimum of 3 weeks.
A minimum of 3 weeks. And if at any point in time the data indicates that there's a resurgence, then we may step back. But that's
Step
what,
back or just go longer for the next phase.
right,
Both of those are possibilities the governor talked about.
exactly. So once we get our cue from him and I've been meeting daily with the emergency management director and the health agent, who's helping advise on, certainly on our reopening plan and when they consider things to be safe to open back for the public. So I'll take my cues from them.
Good, good.
Okay.
Chief Jan Brennan, we have you here to talk about some needs for the fire department.
Yes, for the ambulance, actually. We had 2 computers in Byfield for the ambulance, which are required now by OEMS. They were old. The ones we had before were very, very old. They upgraded the system on their end, on OEMS end, and ours could not take the upgrade. So we started using 2 Surface Pros, which aren't really meant for this application, but we started using them. One is kind of failing, and one got dropped the other day. The screen cracked. So they just don't work with the screen cracked. So I'd like to buy 2 new ones that are fully ready to go, and they're tough books, so they can take a drop and all that, and they're the right ones for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Is this, you're talking about 2, Doug? Is there
So
2?
2,
you
yes,
hear
for the
me,
ambulances in
Doug?
Byfield. Yep. Yes, yep.
2 of them. Okay.
2 of them.
Now-
Yep. Yep.
Now, would that money come
one-
back
Request-
into the,
request-
would that
Go
money
ahead.
come
Go
back
ahead, Tom.
after, through reimbursements? I'm sorry. Would that money come back
It's all
through
through receipts, yeah.
reimbursements?
No, it's in the receipts of the ambulance fund. It's not really tax money. It's receipted money through the ambulance.
So we already have that money in-house.
All right.
Basically,
Okay.
that's some of the
Yes.
funds that we have in the ambulance account.
This is a transfer within.
Okay.
Yeah, the transfer is within the enterprise fund.
Yes,
Is that,
yes,
this is not from our reserve,
Yes, it is. Yep. It's
from the ambulance.
right.
But it says
No,
here the
the-
balance. is
no, the
only- it's the same as
extraordinary
what
account
you're
is
asking to be transferred.
it's close. Yeah, it's close.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
What's the balance
got
in
some-
that account right
Some,
now? Or
The balance-
before the transfer?
The current balance
Yeah,
reserve
Tracy?
account is 6,320. And that's the full amount that he's requesting. And I don't know if you're supplementing with some of your other operating budget, or is that the full cost of the 2 computers?
The full cost is $6,060 for both of them.
okay, so you have enough money in the,
We have
you
just
have enough
enough in
money in
that
the
account
fund
to
to
do
make that
that.
transfer. Okay,
We don't have those funds in front of us, so it's hard to know. We don't have any record of those funds in front
Yeah.
of
Oh, I'm
us.
sorry, yeah.
What exists,
Okay, it's
what
the,
currently exists in the ambulance expense account? You're asking for 6,320. What's already in that account? Am I making
this
myself
is the,
clear? or not?
yep, this is the unforeseen account. It's an extraordinary unforeseen account. And there's $6,320 or something like that in there.
Right.
And I wanted 6,060 of it
Right.
to buy the computers.
Okay. What is the balance in the account that we're transferring this to? Is that empty? Is it zero?
Oh, two. No, I believe there's, after my
You're going
last
from one
pay period, after my
account.
last expenses, there was around,
Existing account.
I'm only getting every word, I'm sorry. The one I want to transfer to, I think there's about $11,000 left in it.
Okay, so you anticipate needing that for the rest of the year? I'm trying to justify the
I
reason
do,
for
yeah,
the
I do. Yeah,
transfer.
Right, I see.
Okay,
Yeah, we do. We still have to pay Comstar and some ambulance stuff we have to pay monthly.
okay,
See, I
all
do.
right, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think it's on my
Yeah,
end.
I
but
know.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Doug.
yeah, what has come across on my screen is that we are having some internet instability. And so
Yep, that's-
some of the
that's on my
audio
end.
and video is going a little nutty on us.
Okay.
So, so
You need
I
a
would,
motion?
I do need a motion, yes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
So moved. I'll second it.
okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Linda? Okay,
Okay.
I couldn't hear you, so I have to write them down. Got it.
Is Linda
Okay, thank
muted,
you,
by
Chief.
the way? There
Thank
you
you very
go.
much.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh, she's not now.
Thanks, Doug. I know, I saw that.
What's the matter? Where am I?
Thank you very much.
Am I lost?
We can hear you now.
No,
We can
well,
hear you, Linda.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think you're at home. Or where? Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes, I
request,
Good to
am.
go.
may I request
yes.
the committee authorize me to sign on behalf of the chairman to sign this reserve fund transfer for processing, since you're not physically here?
We can do that,
Does that
or
require a
you
motion?
can email it to me. I can sign it and scan it back.
That's fine.
Your choice.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, email it to me, and then I'll scan it back and send it right back to you.
Got it.
Okay. And then we have Steve Manchin. So Steve, you
He
wrote a
needs to be
letter.
unmuted.
Oh.
He's
Let's
muted.
see.
Okay.
Am I unmuted now?
No, he's
Steve, you're
unmuted now.
unmuted. Yeah.
Okay.
Assuming you can hear me, I wrote a letter a while back, and at one time I thought this would be a joint meeting with the selectmen regarding the warrants. So I'm assuming that an item to reconstruct the building at the corner of Northern Boulevard and the Plum Island Turnpike is still going to be on the warrants for about $200,000. And that's what I hope to address. That sound right?
That would be next week, Steve. And
Right.
I'll set that notice out tomorrow.
Okay.
I guess.
But may I say,
Sure.
A question now is, in anticipation of level funding of the budget, is that item even going to be on the warrant?
Nope.
It's not going to be on the warrant.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So that may answer your question, Steve.
yes, but I guess the question would be, is the town anticipating spending resources to reconstruct the bathroom, something that was voted down at the last town meeting, as you may recall?
I can't answer that, but looks like we don't have the money. But somebody else would have to answer that. Tracy?
Go ahead, Tracy.
As of right now, we had received a $40,000 grant by the state that has to be spent by June 30th. So the materials have been purchased. When we initially brought this forward to town meeting, you will recall that we've had two votes on this. One was to spend $350,000 to purchase the building and turn it into public facilities. Second, we proposed a I believe it was 200,000 expenditure to renovate it. The price was so high because at that point in time, there was a concern of residents in Plum Island. They did not want the portable facilities there any longer. And the selectmen at the time wanted to do it quickly, get it done at once. We'd go out to bid, obviously pay prevailing wage and get it done. The first vote passed overwhelmingly. The second vote, by a much smaller margin, failed by, I think, 9 votes or something like that. I'll look it up and I'll send you the actual votes. So at this point in time, the Brian Lombara, who's a member of the DPW, has attained his contractor's license, and the DPW workforce can do the work themselves for much less money. So they are going to, it will take them longer. They're not going to do it in one season because obviously they have to do the road work and everything else that they do during the summer months. So they'll do it much like they did the work that they accomplished at the fire department. When they can during their off time, they'll work on renovating the building. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
And I realize this isn't necessarily the format to have a debate, but if I may say 2 things quickly, Mr. Chairman. I think it's good to remember that when we voted to purchase property, that was before at a subsequent meeting, we realized we needed to spend another $1 million to finish out the police station. I'm not so sure the town would have been anxious to spend the $350 to purchase the property if we had known what was coming. And that gets me to how I think in some instances we can look at the town having a structural spending problem as opposed to a structural deficit problem. So I could say more and voice my concerns about the O&M costs, which someone's got to approve at some point, but this may not be the format or the place for me to say anything more. Though I'd be happy to.
Okay. And I know that, Steve. The idea of a structural spending deficit versus a structural deficit, two different issues entirely. And we'll be happy to address both of them when you like. But I know that, Joe, you've got to jump off now. Is that
Yes,
correct?
right now, yep,
So,
that's correct.
okay, thank you very much for being here. And we'll see you next week. I'll send out the notice tomorrow. And Steve, I think you're right that our next meeting would probably be more apropos for that discussion when we do have the Board of Selectmen present as well.
Thank you. I'll probably ask to be on your agenda since you may be an easier group to request speaking time.
Okay.
Well, it's both financial and policy, right? I mean, so we both need to think about that. Both groups, both boards.
It's true, but I mean, you had
There's some
written
good
to
points.
me, and as I had replied to you, while we watch these things and are responsible, it is some of these issues aren't, while we look at the cost, the decision to go ahead or not go ahead does not belong to this committee. Our committee recommends or recommends against, but it then belongs to the voters to decide how to go with many of these spending issues, as we have been struggling through years with those questions. So while we always listen to you, Steve, what you may want from us is not something that we can give you.
And I appreciate that, Marshall, which is why there are other items I could bring to the attention of the selectmen, but I'm hoping I'll be allowed to speak to those issues at the joint meeting, because I think a lot of it goes to the quality of life here on Plum Island. But again, I recognize that there are certain things under the purview of the Finance Committee and certain things that are not. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Your letter was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Gene.
Is there anything else we need to cover this evening?
I can give a quick update from the DCC.
Okay,
We met last Thursday, and much like what Tracy had to say about the town finances, Triton is looking fine for the rest of this year, but next year's budget is very much up in the air. They've been speaking to folks in up in Beacon Hill, and the worst case scenario they heard was potentially a 20% reduction in Chapter 70 funding, which would be devastating. And as Chairman Forget, Superintendent Forget pointed out, there's no fat to cut. That's going to be salaries if it comes to that. So very hopeful that it won't. He seemed more confident that there would be something, some new stimulus package that might address that would help the states. Thinking back to what it looked like in the the last recession and how that Chapter 70 money was backfilled, but what next year looks like financially, and also just whether or not schools will be able to go back is all very much up in the air right now. So,
could you send me just a short synopsis of that I can put in the minutes?
I can, yes.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else?
I know Chairman Volpone from the Recreation Committee wanted to talk to you about the basketball courts, but I don't know if he's still on the call, on the meeting.
Wait a minute.
I don't see him.
No, he's
He
not
was,
there.
but I don't see him now.
He was, yeah. Okay.
We may have discouraged him. Okay, is there anyone else? Michael? Anything from you?
He's muted.
I'm good.
Uh,
Thank you. I just
Okay, Okay. Very good. Tracy, anything else we need to cover?
No?
Okay, if you will send me the paperwork, I will sign it and scan it back to you right away.
Okay.
I'll get the notice out for the joint meeting for next week. Thank you all for your patience. Even though we had not the best of internet connections, I think it worked out pretty well.
Excellent.
It's good
Thank
to
you,
see you
Marshall.
all.
Good
Yes.
night, all.
Good night, all.
Good night.